Alright guys, so finally we have come to the one of the most complex or confused or misunderstood chapters of React.js, which is React Redux. So let's understand what is React Redux. See, basically, so far we managed to save a state, right? Where did we create a state? We created a state of accounts and managed to create a state of list of accounts within that. Next, we tried, we could now, if you want to store it into a persistence database, we saw how to use REST API. Similarly, you can call a REST API from your React.js, connect to a database and save the data. So that is another type of persistence. But in between, there is another type of persistence, which is really brilliant innovation by Facebook. That is React Redux. React Redux will maintain the state of your application in a store for your entire app. It is not just for one component. State was for per component. Here, how does it work? And there is no lifting of state and all here. What here it will do is basically React Redux. Let me repeat. The React Redux is a store for your data across the app. So now, what are the first thing we have seen? We saw that you can use state, correct, at the component level to store data. We created some accounts. Next is we saw the REST API. Using the REST API, you can always connect to a database and do a major persistence using database connectivity. Now, in between lies another innovation from Facebook, which is allowing you to store a state across your app. Okay, so this allows you to store a state across your app using your Redux store. So now remember, now this app Redux, React Redux is across components. It's across your app. Okay, it's not a state of a component. It is the state of your Redux. It's a state of your app. So this is really a temporary store across your app. Okay, so which is really accessible across your apps in all the components. So you can consider this like a little bit of a persistence concept only, okay? But this is across app. So the Redux store state can be modified by actions, something called as actions from components, from any component. These are like Redux actions, but only through the functions called as reducers, okay? Special functions called modifiers or reducers, okay? Any change in the state. Now, if any of this app state changes because of this modifier and Redux, everything is passed to the component as props. That state of the entire Redux store gets passed. And actions to change the store is passed from components using the connect method. Okay, so these are some important concepts here. So how this happens, how the action is dispatched, how the actual change is passed to the component as props, that we will see the syntax later. Now, the important critical dependencies, you need to install the Save React, React DOM, React Redux, React Scripts Redux. Okay, if you don't install these dependencies, your React Redux won't work. This is as for the latest version I'm talking about. As you all know, React.js also keeps on evolving, but as of now, you need to have this second line important dependency installed. Then what else you need? You'll have to create an action. What do you want to do? Actions are nothing but pure functions, JSX. Then reducer, as we know, reducers will take your function action and check like what you want to do, and then as per the payload assign the thing to the and assign the value to the store and return your value. Now finally the store is app store, which the state changes based on actions sent from the reducer. This is basically your app store. Okay, that also you'll have to create. Actions, reducers, stores. These are some of the fundamental parts of your structure. Using actions, you can update a store via reducers. Okay, so why do we do that? Is because this is across components at the app level, right? Any update to the store will get propagated to all the components using the provider context. So let's see an example here. Basically, this is best learned by the concept of Redux is best understood by actually building it. So let us get together and actually build it. So before we build, let's understand in the index.js, couple of imports important here. Provider which provides the context. Context means any change in the store, any changes in the store. If you want it to be, the accessible below in child components, it gives you the context. You can go through the context slide later to understand what is context. If you haven't gone through it, you should go through it and then come here. And then you have to import the create store API from Redux. This basically provides you the Redux store. And you also have to import the reducer class. Then you create a store with the reducer as a parameter. Because why do you do that? Because store, as we see here, this store can be updated. This store can be updated only by reducers. And then once you do that, once you create a store, you'll have to add a provider and store context like this. So you say provider store is equal to store, and this store is now available throughout the app. Okay, you have to import this create store, and we'll see how to actually create one. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and create a new project. Let's say reduce Redux 3. And I'm going to say, for the last one, I'm not going to create a folder. And I'm going to say Redux 3. Okay. So let it do its magic and let it create the API for me. So let's go step by step here and let's understand this complicated or I think it's pretty straightforward but not properly documented or explained at times. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible and try to go step by step. But basically what you need to know is a provider, this Redux is a store across apps. Okay. Alright, so let me open up the Redux 3. We have now a brand new class for us. So let's start doing the right requirements here. Let's say if it import provider first for context, okay, from React Redux. And we need to import the store. From Redux. Import create store from Redux. By the way, you don't need to by heart the syntax. It's good to remember, but no need to by heart anything. The APIs are freely available for use. And now we need to create one store. And pass it a reducer. So what this means is basically inside the store, any changes will happen through that reducer. So now we have not created any reducers here. So we will not pass any for now, okay. With this much, what we have to do is we have to enclose this in provider. The app now has to be stored in a provider. Provider is a context. Context means what? Any values, attributes will get passed to all the child components. And now one more thing we need here is the store. What is the store of your app? Which we just created now. Okay, so with this our index.js is partially over. So let us do one thing. Let's create actions first. Call it actions.js and say const. We're going to create contacts this time. So I'm going to say type of action is going to be create contact, and contact is just a variable that I'm passing. Alright, so what does this mean is this method is expecting a contact. Now this is going to come from our app.js, from the button, okay? This can be a array, this can be anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this much and keep it here, okay? So we have created our first action here. Now also let's create our reducer. So the code for reducer is pretty much the same. What it does is, if you want to create something, it's going to not mutate the state of the store. It's going to create a duplicate state and return the value in a object. Update it and return the value in an object. So that is pretty much standard. So let me copy that. So here the change that we need to do is we need to import the create, sorry, it's not create lead, it's create contact from actions. In the reducer, what we'll do is it has to match the same. Okay, create contact, and it is just in actions folder. We are not creating a separate folder for it, and call it actions. So what it is doing is, let's understand this reducer will always get the state, okay, in the form of an array and the action when it is dispatched, when this is dispatched. So this now it will come here and check your payload action type. So you have passed this payload here, create contact. So it has to be of type text. Sorry, single quotes, double quotes, both will go. So if you go over here, we need to say create contact. I just want to check. Okay, create contact. And so what this happens is, let's understand the syntax. This is the spread operator. This returns a value, okay? This returns the state, whatever is the current state. After the state has got added, object dot assign this, it will create a new object, and whatever that action dot, like say whatever we are passing. If we take the action, in this case, we are going to pass contact here. See, please understand this contact is going to come in from this parameter, and it is going to get assigned here, okay? This parameter is going to get assigned here. I can give like, contact 1 here, maybe to make it more clear. So this contact is the parameter which comes in and gets assigned to the property of this action, contact 1. And this one I'm going to access over here, action.contact1. So this is going to create a new store state, add this state value to it, and then return it back to us. You can have multiple case conditions here. Right now we are just going to keep one. Okay, this syntax is pretty much same for all the reducers, but what you do within your switch depends on you. Okay, so now reducers is ready, now our action is ready. Now let's add the reducer to the index. From /reducer.js, right? So yeah, we are good here. So this is going to, and now I'm going to pass this to this store. So what does this mean? Any change to this store is going to happen via this reducer, and this reducer is going to take these actions when via the dispatch. Alright, so what I did is I have passed this reducer. So we have mapped the actions, we created the reducer. Now we need to actually connect it to the app.js. So now this needs some change. Let me quickly create that class. And as usual, we have a constructor And now a couple of things here now which need to be added to this app.js is, let's add the connecting methods. As we go back to the slides to understand. So build the action, we have done that. Build the reducer, we have done that. Now we need to build the map state to props. So what this does is this map state to props, any changes that happens in the store will come back to us. Okay, so let's take it from here itself and move it here, and we'll call it contacts. Alright, so we'll say, just a minute, this has gone crazy. It should be outside the class declaration. Yeah, important, it has to be outside the class declaration. And the next method of dispatching the properties is also an important method. So let's take that one. So what happens here is these default ones won't change. Okay, this syntax you can reuse. You don't need to by heart this. So this is basically what map state to props. It's the name of the method. Takes two properties injected by React.js. State is the state of that Redux store. Now here what happens is map dispatch to props. So this is basically a call to the dispatcher reducer. So here we are going to say, what's our action here? Create contact action. Action dot create contact is what we are going to call here. Let's do one thing. Let's remove all of this. And here we have to import the action, otherwise it will not know what it to do. So let's quietly import the actions. So now that we know that the actions is imported, we can say actions dot actions dot create contact. And it takes one parameter, which is a contact. If you see the action, it takes one parameter, which is a contact. So that also you have to pass. So you're saying actions dot create contact, and you're dispatching it to the reducer. So we need to make a change here. That was for contact. Let's create for contact. So we are going to create an actionable method here. What does this do? This creates a local method. This is like writing a method here called as submit action. Instead of writing like this and then binding it, what happens here is React.js gives us a method. So we're going to call it create contact, and it's going to take, let's keep the smaller case contact. So with this, what happens here is we have set up the dispatch. Now one more thing we need to do is we need to bind all of this to this application, as we have seen. So if you don't import and bind this, it will not go. You have to always connect the map state to props and map dispatch to props to app. So that way the connection will happen. Okay. If you don't do that, then it will not work. So this way what you're telling is connect the Redux store, connect the map state props, map dispatch props to this app. Okay. So now we need to render, we need to create a return some div, and we say input and let's give it a ref. contact name, and again let's keep it let's have one more value, contact phone. So I want to create two values here. For now I'm going to keep it as text. We can make it as number also later. I'm going to call it contact phone. Alright, so we have two tags here. And we're going to put it inside a form. Which will have an on submit. And you have to create a submit method first. So let's say we created a submit method and we need to bind the submit. Now we are not yet updated the Redux store, okay? So let us see how to do that.